Morning, are we awake? All right, cool, because we've got a great speaker this morning, so I want energy in the room. Before I introduce Emily, I wanted to just say I had a couple people come up to me in the last couple of breakfasts saying they'd love to help on my committee, and I don't remember who you were, and you gave me cards, and now they're in that stack, that we all have on our desks, and go, ugh. So if you were one of those people, could you come find me again after breakfast? And if you weren't one of those people, but you would love to be on the programming committee, come find me as well. So. Anyway, I'm really excited to introduce our speaker this morning, St. Louis fashion designer Emily Brady Koplar, the founder of fashion line Wai Ming. Emily is one of 6 designers from all across the country that were chosen for the inaugural class of the St. Louis Fashion Fund's Incubator, which is a 2-year long intensive program that kicked off in January of 2017. Founded in 2011, Wai Ming has defined its place in the women's contemporary market with an unexpected approach to clean line minimalism and thoughtful architectural details that move effortlessly from day to night. The line is designed for and inspired by strong, dynamic women who appreciate the beauty and ease of its versatile, polished aesthetic. The collection is designed in St. Louis and crafted in New York using luxurious fabrics from Italy and Japan. Wai Ming was a finalist for the Fashion Group International Rising Star Award and has been spotted on fans including Jessica Alba, Emily Blunt, Kerry Washington, Carrie Underwood, Ellie Kemper, and Taylor Swift. Emily holds a degree in economics from Boston University and is a graduate of the Parsons School of Design, which that personally is my most excited thing, to be around somebody who's walked the halls where Tim Gunn walked. It's just makes me so happy. So anyway, please help me welcome Emily to share her inspiring entrepreneurial story with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for that great introduction, and thank you all for having me and for being here at 7:30 in the morning. I really appreciate it. Melissa touched on this, but just to tell you a little bit more about Wai Ming. It is designed for, inspired by the strong, global, dynamic woman, and really each piece is thoughtfully designed to go effortlessly from day to night. And I think the way that women are working today and the way the world is today, nobody has time to go home and change before an event, and people want their clothes to work for them in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of the quick background of what Wai Ming is, but just want to give a little bit of my background. So I'm from St. Louis, born and raised here. I was always drawing and painting as a kid, was very artistic, but kind of also grew up, working at my mom's office. She had her own business that she started when I was around in 4th grade, around the same time that I got a sewing machine. So as I was, sewing clothes for troll dolls, that's how I started, I was also getting this firsthand entrepreneurial experience. And so, it was just kind of this nice balance of the practical and the business with the creative and artistic side, and being able to explore both areas that I both enjoyed quite a bit. So I ended up graduating from troll doll designs into my own, and started making my own clothes through middle school and high school. And as Melissa mentioned, when I went to college, I ended up following more of the business path, studying economics, because I was nervous that even though I still loved design, that if I pursued that, I might end up pigeonholed and never be able to apply a design degree to anything that would be, that would make any money or would keep food on the table. So, I did 4 years at BU and came out and still wanted to do design. So that's when I decided to go on to Parsons and design and study fashion design. While I was there, I was actually interning at May Merchandising Company, may they rest in peace, but was also, again, doing kind of a dual internship. So I was on the buying and merchandising side 2 to 3 days a week, and then the design side the other 2 to 3 days a week, however we split it up. Excuse me. At the end of the internship, I actually got a job offer to be an assistant buyer. And so I thought, oh, well, that's great, but I had just finished design school. And so when the executive vice president of the New York office found out about the offer that corporate had sent, she called me in and she said, I know you have this offer, but I've seen you in both sides of the business, and you can do either one, but she said, if you're really passionate about design, which I think you are, like, you need to go for it. And that was probably the best advice I ever got, and I think really kind of set my career on the path that I've gone down. So I'm very grateful for that. So I ended up, as I said, in design, and ended up with May Company for several years before they got bought out. But it was wonderful. I traveled the world, worked with overseas vendors, was in the factories, but also was working on bestseller reports and margins and negotiating with factories, and also learned how to design for a customer that was not necessarily my taste, which I think is really important because, as you start developing your line and working for other companies, I think it's really hard to remove yourself and your aesthetic from what the customer might actually want. So that's something that was really important that I learned along the way. And then after that, I ended up at Aeropostale, which is like a teen casual company. And even though it was large, it ran much more like a mom and pop. So we were still using like Excel instead of like, the specialized programs. And so I was really focusing on their cut and sew knits, which is the largest part of their company. It was like $300 million or something. But the business was really driven by polos. So, we had hundreds of thousands, if not millions of units of polos, of solid polo, stripe, graphic, embroidered, like every type of polo you can imagine. It's hard to stay passionate about polos for that long. So, after a few years there, my husband and I decided to move back to St. Louis, and I decided that it was time to launch the brand that I felt was missing in the market. I just really believed in emphasizing the strength and femininity in women, and I was seeing the women around me excel in their careers. They're becoming leaders in their industries, whether it was media or fashion or PR or even, stylish lawyers. And so it was kind of like there's Brooks Brothers, which is wonderful, but very suit-oriented. And then you had super feminine brands, you had androgynous brands, and so I wanted to kind of be the bridge between some of these kind of extremes. So for me, the importance was the quality in design and execution. And one thing I noticed in the market over several years was that people were still charging, hundreds of dollars or sometimes thousands of dollars, and they're taking shortcuts on their production, which, as a designer was kind of appalling for me, because I knew the amount of work that would go into some of these pieces and then see what the markup was. So, I had been taught as a seamstress that the inside of the piece should look as beautiful as the outside. And so I really tried to incorporate that in my my designs as well. And so as far as quality and design, part of that is, of course, addressing the versatility, because, whether it's pocket placement or, you wouldn't believe how many women are excited to see a pocket on a dress. Like, it's such a small thing, but, just really kind of keeping in mind all those details. But then, of course, fabrics, bringing forward the most beautiful fabrics that we can that are really interesting, that are different from what else you see on the market. And then unexpected details that really set the designs apart, because, we're up against Zara and H&M, where you can get, a cute dress for $25 or $40. So, really trying to set our product apart with design and the execution. But the other thing that you have to think about is, yes, it's clothing, it has to be functional, it has to be wearable, but also has to have an emotional pull. So, creating pieces that women love and that they feel like, I have to have that, but it's still functional and still it can be in their wardrobe for a period of time. So, so I decided to start my line and named it Wai Ming. And so I'll just tell you a quick story since Melissa brought up Tim Gunn. So the name means gift of light, which was my middle name before I got married. And I was trying to decide on a name for the brand, and was having a bit of an identity crisis. My maiden name was Emily Brady, which felt like a little bit too cutesy for like an elevated clothing line. And then my married name, I had just gotten married, was Emily Koplar, but I had a sister-in-law named Emily Koplar, so I didn't feel like the name was really mine. So I actually went to, Tim Gunn was in town, so I went to talk to him, and I told him my dilemma, and he said, well, you might not want to use your actual name because one, if the company does poorly, then your name goes down in flames with it, right? But if it does really well and you end up selling it, then you're selling your name and your rights to your name, and then, you've lost control of, what's happening, and you might end up with product that you don't stand behind, but your name is on it. So decided on Wai Ming. It was still part of me, and I'm still happy with it today. So here's just a quick, oh, sorry, you told me to turn it on too, didn't you? Thank you. Here we go. So this kind of embodies the woman and the brand, I think. Very clean, sharp, strong, feminine, beautiful, but still functional and wearable. And so I'm just want to take you real quick through kind of the process of how a piece comes, from idea to fruition. So quickly, I'll just go through the design process, which starts about 8 to 12 months out. And like I was saying, it's setting the mood, but how do you set yourself apart from the pack? How do you address your customer? How do you design for her? What does she want? Not necessarily what do I want to design. It's fabrication, it's finding the right silhouettes, it's setting the palette, and coming with the point of view and having that kind of emotion. So here's just kind of a mini mood board. So you can see the colors are black and white and blue, and we've got this kind of pop of orange. And I like to include pictures of the women that I want to dress to kind of remind me of who she is, kind of keep it top of mind. And then you can see we have some really beautiful fabrics in there, lots of details, and she's strong but still approachable. So then the development process. Which is kind of developing all of the samples and the patterns. This usually takes place about 6 to 8 months prior to clothing hitting the selling floor. So we create the patterns. We do muslin fittings, which is kind of like the first round of fittings with cheap fabric to make sure everything looks good. And then we do the sample cutting and sewing. So here we have a pattern maker. This is an example of the muslin. So we cut it up, we pin it, we draw on it, and we try to make it the fit as perfect as possible, make sure all the seams are in the right place, the neckline's in the right place. And then we have our pattern maker here cutting and sewing, and then we have a rack of samples. So then sales. So sales, we start 4 to 6 months out, and obviously it goes through the selling season. But we start with our photo shoot and finding the most perfect model who embodies the brand. I really am firm about not using girls who are too young, because I think our customer is in her 30s to 40s. She's a professional, and sometimes the agencies will send 14 or 15-year-old girls, and you're like, no, this is not right. The other thing is pricing, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, but one kind of side story here is I was used to working for very large companies where we would haggle over a couple pennies per unit, because when you're working with millions of units, that makes a big deal. And so if we threatened to pull the product or the production from one company for a couple pennies, everybody would bend over backwards and try to make it work. Well, with my first season, went into the factories in New York and said, okay, well, I want this price, and if you can't do it, I'll take my business elsewhere. And they were just like, okay, fine, go. We don't need your 100 units of dresses. So I had to change my negotiating strategy quite drastically, very quickly. And so that was kind of an interesting learning experience. Most of our sales are through wholesale, so we do that through trade shows and showrooms, and that's where we meet, the buyers from boutiques to the larger, major department stores, and so that mostly takes place in New York. Obviously, we also are focusing on our direct-to-consumer channels. So, e-com, we just relaunched the website, which I think looks really beautiful. I'll show you a picture, and then we also do trunk shows and pop-ups, which I really enjoy. That's kind of the most hands-on experience you can get. It's working with the customers. You're getting to see how women wear the clothes, how they feel in the clothes, and you get really great feedback to see, 3 different people trying on the same dress and seeing how it fits them differently. Because, women are built in all different shapes and sizes, and they're all beautiful. And trying to address all of them is can sometimes be a challenge, but something that I enjoy. So this is just from castings, behind the scenes from the photo shoots. And this is the result. So this is the lookbook that we use to, sell to the stores. And again, you see that strength and that femininity and the versatility. So like, even though this looks like a strapless dress, it's actually 2 pieces. It can be layered under a jacket. You can wear the top over a turtleneck in the winter. You can wear the skirt by itself. So really try to point out the different ways that all of the pieces can be worn. Again, this looks like a dress, but it's actually 2 pieces. This dress can be worn, can be wrapped like 6 to 8 different ways. Just a great little top. Again, still architectural shapes and details in a more casual piece. Great high-low dress, very easy. This one's great for work or brunch. And you can still see, again, all the clean lines. And just to point out real quick, jumpsuits have become a surprise bestseller for us. So, the idea of this like kind of one-piece dressing for the ease of women to be able to get up and go and still look super polished and stylish. It started out as dresses being really good, and jumpsuits are kind of our secret silent assassins, I guess. And then we've got a couple more dresses. And so this is just a shot from the trade show. And then our new website, which I think is very easy for the user to navigate. And so, one thing that was really important for me is obviously to make sure that the brand is consistent at every touch point with the customer. So, the designs are very clean and sophisticated, so I wanted the website to have that same feel. And same for, when we send product out from e-com orders, we have the packaging that looks very, clean and elevated and sophisticated. So then production, which is usually about 2 to 4 months before we hit the sales floor. And so I mentioned that we do everything in New York, and there is a very good reason why. One is, for me, it's really important to see what conditions the people who are working on the product are, what they're working in. So, there's been a lot of factories overseas in Bangladesh and different places that have imploded and caught on fire, and so it's just really important that I know that people are working in good, safe conditions, that they're getting paid well, and I know pretty much everybody on the line. So if there's a problem, it's really easy to work it out. And then of course, it's nice being able to work with somebody that's only a couple hours away versus halfway around the world. So then, and I wanted to touch real quick on PR. So obviously we have our long lead, which is more of the traditional magazines like Vogue and Elle, and so that pretty much starts when we start our sales cycle, about 6 months out. They need time to, do their photo shoots and do their editing and print and everything. And then we have short lead, which I'm also including social media in, but online and blogs and everything that's happening in the world today. And then we have our VIP and influencer programs. So VIP would be like celebrity, and then influencers like social media influencers. So I'll just take you through real quick. So these are some of our recent press placements. And so, it's 1 feat to get the girl to wear the dress and to get the stylist to pull and, to see it. But then we have to push it out to all of our media contacts. And so you'll see, the same picture more or less in different publications. This is Emma Roberts. She wore a couple of our pieces. So you'll see it in Style, E! News. And so they can kind of make their own story out of, whatever they want, but as long as they know that she's wearing our dress, that makes us happy. This was Taylor Swift on vacation. And then you can see, like, some of them even use the same titles, which I thought was interesting. And then this was a new opportunity for us. So, I mostly focus on ready to wear kind of, day to evening, and I had the opportunity to do some red carpet gowns. And so this one I actually worked with Ellie and her stylist as a custom gown, and so now that has actually become a growing part of our business as well. So again, you see her in a couple different places. So For me, the last several years, and I guess my whole life, has just been kind of about keeping the balance of, again, the business and the creativity, and now kind of addressing the balance of, what's happening in the retail world with traditional brick and mortars versus, what's happening with online and e-com. So I think it's important to have both. Because we're seeing now that even companies who started as strictly online businesses are now finding activations where they're doing pop-ups or they're building their guide stores, and so that's something that we're kind of trying to navigate now. But that's kind of all I have for the presentation, and would love to take questions.
So how on earth did you get this funded? And how do you, when you first started, people don't really know what you're doing, and you've never, it's a huge lead time, it's a tremendous investment, it seems like. You put your stuff out there, you hope the heck it sells. How do you finance it, and how did you get it funded at the very beginning?
We've been self-funded from the beginning, so a lot of bootstrapping, a lot of hustling, a lot of negotiating, a lot of calling in personal favors. So to date, we've been self-funded, but I think we are probably going to be looking for funding soon in order to take the business to the next level.
Next question here.
Okay, wonderful presentation,
Thanks,
Emily. So a quick question for you. What are you currently working on right now here in St. Louis?
So as Melissa mentioned, I'm actually in the St. Louis incubator, fashion incubator down in Washington, which I'm not sure if everybody knows about, but you should come visit us. It is an incubator for 6 designers, and they're helping us, really giving us mentorship and helping us take our businesses to the next level. We all have very different businesses, so it's been kind of self-tailored, which has been really nice. But their goal is to bring the fashion industry back to St. Louis, and so I'm happy to be a part of that mission. But also, like I said, trying to figure out the kind of balance between digital and more traditional retail is kind of the, I guess, bigger focus.
Next question's right here.
Okay, Emily, really wonderful story.
Thank you.
So tell me, where are you in terms of size, employees? In other words, what are you now, and what are you trying to get to?
So we are now about 4 people. Some are, part-time, but so I'd really like to, one thing that I feel like I've kind of been missing along the way is somebody to kind of, I would like to now bring on somebody to help really manage the business, and then I can kind of focus more on the creative, because like I said, it's a balance, but it also, both sides need full attention. So now we're getting to the point where we really need to bring on somebody else to, kind of fill in that CEO, business management role.
Next question comes through here.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Question around the public relations. How were you, when you first started out, how did you get the word out about your brand, and how did you start getting the exposure that you needed to elevate the brand to the public?
So I feel very lucky I have a friend who's in PR, who does fashion PR. So she really helped me, but we reached out to, really all of our leads. So any personal contacts, any industry contacts that were, editorial or also store buyers, and kind of reached out that way. Now, we're working on an influencer program to help spread the word. There's some where you have to pay them. We usually just gift them a piece in exchange for a placement and some nice imagery. So that's kind of our next big thing. And I think that would be great too for launching a new brand. Instagram was not that huge when I launched, so it's a little bit different now. But just getting really compelling imagery, I think, is important too, to show that your brand is elevated, because I know you're working on kind of couture handbags. So just making sure that the story is consistent across, again, like every touch point, like I said, so that people can understand what you are and what your product is.
Emily, I have a personal question, and then
Okay.
Tom will. By the way, I'm amazed at how much you achieved just by bootstrapping your business. So I'm quite interested to see what's your take between, coming out from a large corporation and going and starting your own business, one aspect, and the second is, okay, how do you manage having to do everything, or are you using other subcontractors, or how do you manage all that stuff? Because obviously probably it's not possible to do everything by yourself.
Yes, I'm not sewing all the clothes. I'm not doing the patterns. We are. So the first question was about going from a large company to a small company. Yeah, that was challenging. I mean, I think the good thing about working for a large company was, like May Company in particular, was very good about systems. So, and having, very streamlined, sometimes a little bit bureaucratic, but very good systems for creating packages and like having a whole checklist of everything that needed to get done. And so that I think was really helpful when starting my own business, because it kind of kept me on track. Because as an entrepreneur, you get pulled in so many different directions, whether it is PR or it's sales or but it's at the same time you have to make sure that production is going on and that they have everything they need for whether it's the label to the buttons and they have all the specs, and so I think having all those systems kind of help manage everything that I did not expect to have to manage so much stuff. So that was kind of the biggest challenge. And then, what was your second question? Who
Partners in your.
So I do have help in PR, and then I have somebody who handles sales, and then I just brought on somebody to help with digital marketing, so that helps. And then also, pattern makers and factories who are doing things, beautiful work, things that I could do, I suppose, but they do it much better, so I'd much rather have them do it.
Hi, great presentation. I'm right here.
Oh, hi.
Great presentation. Can you talk a little bit more about negotiating with the factories in New York City, I guess in the garment district,
Yeah.
and how your strategy kind of changed from when you started to now?
Yeah, so what I learned was, each style that we produce has a different quantity. So in order to get better pricing for the smaller quantities, we had to give them, obviously, the bigger ones as well. And so for me, I was used to splitting up production because I didn't want everything in one basket, but I found that I was able to get much better pricing with and quicker turnaround when I was able to give them like the full program. So yeah, and again, just being really nice, bringing them coffee, bringing them treats, in order to hit deadlines, just being super grateful. I think that also helps, and also being quick with payment has helped them, helped as well, because they're more willing to work a little bit harder for you. But I think also just being nice has helped me get a long way with a lot of the factories.
Another question from here.
This is not a business question.
Okay.
Just so you know, there's a room full of, there's a lot of males in this room, and I know a lot of us are probably thinking the same thing. How do you buy something for your wife? Because I'm looking at it going, this is wonderful stuff.
You don't.
I would love it, but I would completely screw it up. So what advice do you have for clueless males?
Well, I would look at the brands that are in their closet, look at the sizes, and then find either a brand that has good customer service that you can, talk to somebody personally, or find a great sales associate at a boutique or store, local store, and I would enlist their help as well.
If I wanted to buy some of your stuff, what would be the advice?
Just see me afterwards. I know the best place to go.
Go to her website, Joe. Come on. All right, we have time for one more question.
Actually, I'm going to ask that question. Obviously, you probably made a lot of mistakes throughout this process. Can you share some of them and actually how you solved them?
Yes, I would. So the biggest challenge from the first season was, I really wanted to do this kind of hand tucking. This is like a very specific one. But So we did this development of this hand tucking, and it was beautiful, and all the samples, we got all these orders, and then found out that we could not get the production made in New York. And so it turned into, I don't usually swear, but we started calling it the effing tucking, because it was like, I was like, this is my first season, we have to get it out, we have to get it on time, and it has to look beautiful, and it has to be perfect. And so basically, I created like a small cottage industry of people who were hand sewing all these little tucks onto tunics. So that was I thought that was something that I thought we'd be able to get done in production, and probably should have done a little bit more research. And so I learned a lot from that lesson. We'd no longer do that tucking. But we also, also make sure, going into development that that we were able to execute everything to the best quality and to our standards for production as well. The other thing is, I don't know if they were mistakes, but I did learn from them, was finding the right sales team. I worked with some salespeople who, it wasn't exactly a great camaraderie, I guess. There was a lot of friction, and I didn't realize that that it should be more of a team effort. And so when I then moved on to a different sales team, realized, oh, that's kind of what I've been missing. I just thought like this, other person had been kind of like the answer to all my prayers, and then found out that, you really shouldn't be like fighting or like, and I'm not a very combative person, but, or making sure that the people who are selling your line really understand your vision, and aren't pushing it to be, too sexy or too workwear or too, like really being able to express the vision that I have of the brand, and since they are representing it with all the buyers.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing.